Today, I have invited Glenn to talk about some of George Adamski's movie film and also some of his father, Fred Steckling's movie films. Oh, that is what we will see today. But what makes Adamski one of the most interesting contactees through the history of modern-day ufology and contactee history is his accumulated physical evidence, both photos and films. I would definitely characterize these films as physical evidence. They were also made when there existed only analog film, making it impossible to Photoshop these films. Photoshop did not even exist at that time in the 1950s and 60s. The films set him apart from all the rest of the contactees of the period. Even though these clips are short, they do represent exceptional presentations of what was presented to Adamski to record for history. Glenn, would you give some of the background for how these films were secured by Adamski? Perhaps
Yes.
the logistics of how they were recorded, the arrangements that went before the recordings, and also any detail that you can provide about each film that we will show. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Renee, for a very fine introduction there.
Yeah.
It is an absolute fact that no one in this UFO field, neither at the time of George and the original contactees or since, had the same type of quality photographs, telescopic pictures, and the motion picture films that he was honored to receive. And often cases, in fact, most of them, the space people came to George and told him to be ready with his camera at a particular place and time so that these sequences could be filmed. I want you to visualize that an 8mm camera is a very old type of device. In fact, if you give me a moment, I will show one to you.
Oh, that's nice.
I have my father's 8mm camera.
Yeah.
And this is what it looks like.
Yeah.
And you will notice that here is the viewfinder, a very small hole in the back.
Yeah.
And you have to then hold this camera with two hands, look through this tiny viewfinder, and then follow what you are filming. And as we mentioned before, the film being 8mm is only about 1 centimeter by centimeter as far as square coverage is. And so the images that are on here are not going to be 100% clear or what you might expect from things these days, because I mean, it's very, very tiny, and we have gone through frame by frame, pixel by pixel with the modern technology and allow you to see these films in a much better condition, and also to freeze frame some of them so that you can take a section, because a lot of this film is at high motion.
Yeah.
And that way, by freeze framing him, it gives you a second to kind of settle, take a look, and then it continues on again. So the freeze framing portion is an advantage that Renee, excuse me, is capable of putting there so that you can see this as well. So these films were taken over a 10-year period, more or less. The Mexico footage that was taken down near Guadalajara was taken in 1958. The New Zealand footage, in which you will see a craft moving underneath the Viscount turboprop flying from Auckland to Australia, was in 59 during his world tour.
Yeah.
The Appleton sequence was taken in 1961. The Vista sequence in 1964, and Boston as well as later in 1964. And his final piece of film, which is the Silver Spring film, was in February of 1965, just about 7 weeks before he passed away. So Adamski's films were in multiple locations all over the US and some of them in foreign countries, and provided a consistent record of these type of UFOs and their sightings of them. So there was no way that people could deny the existence of these extraterrestrial spacecraft.
No, I think I find these movies extremely convincing. And of course, I do have my favorites, which also explains a lot about what I have seen with my own eyes. The Silver Spring, the Mexico, and the Appleton are my three favorites. But people will, of course, judge for themselves what they find most convincing. But I find every six films that we are going to see, they are short, but they are very interesting. Let's say that. I think people will find it very, very refreshing to see some of the old films. So, Glenn, shall we begin with the Mexico from 1958?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Let's do that. I will begin by sharing the screen, so you will disappear, but you will talk whatever you want to say, and let's do that. So I will optimize it for video, and then we should be able to see the sequence here. So let's begin with the Mexico film.
The circumstances of this film was in January of 1958. Mr. Adamski and some of his students and friends, personal friends, had acquired a residence in the Lake Chapala area outside of Guadalajara, and this film was taken on the road in Mexico around that area. And so you can see it's a bit of subtropical, and then you can see in the far distance there, look dead center, slightly to the left of the screen, you see the dome and the sphere ball above the flying saucer, and it's behind the trees there.
Yeah.
And you can see that by you're seeing the motion of the film, that it takes quite a bit of the technical expertise to freeze the frame and to bring it out sufficient so that you can see it clearly.
Oh, indeed. Indeed. It is. We will see it much clearer in still frames just a little bit after this.
That's correct.
And this is the part of the film where the car has stopped.
The car has stopped, and there's over to the right-hand side, 3/4 of the way up the bush, is a round, spherical, what we call a registering disc, or what you would call now a drone. And all the craft carry these. These are in their ability to record data outside the craft. So just like we have ROVs and drones, they have them too. But behind it, when you look behind the tree, you can start to see the spherical construct of the entire craft. In fact, the sun is reflecting partially on it, and it is also slightly in motion as well. There you get a much better look of the hull and the dome. Yeah. And the interesting thing about this film was that the remainder of the film shows that the craft suddenly becomes totally solid right in front of you. And this film was shown on ABC, and my parents took it there. And up on the booth up above an ABC were not only the producers and the directors, but also some government officials as well. And they did not and would not return the film to us. So we took attorneys, my father did, and 3 months fought to get the film back. And when he got the film back, that last sequence of the craft totally solidifying was cut off, and we had no recourse to chase it down.
That's very, very, very unfortunate, I think, because
but it's still,
that could have been a very, very convincing piece of film.
Oh, it was very convincing, but still, in the context of what we have this film now, and it still is quite good. It's a bit blurry in some places, but we have been able to bring out the images better to be seen, especially there, and so consequently, it makes an excellent piece of footage. And when you think about it, no computers, no Photoshop, none of those things existed then. Yeah. It was either real or it didn't happen.
Exactly.
And so this is quite a fine piece of evidence.
Yeah, this is actually amazing. I just showed it 2 times just for people to get their heads around it, because I can remember that I saw that movie clip many times until I understood what happened to that craft in the distance, just over the tree line. Yes. I just couldn't get to grips with what I saw, that it went from see-through to more opaque. And that was quite weird to look at.
Because George described the craft as being what you would call
translucent, maybe even.
Translucent is the word I'm looking for. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because the skin of the craft, if we look at a small scale model here, the skin of the craft is
just
porous.
A second, Glenn, I will just stop this, so we will unshare the screen, then you can just show what you are showing.
Okay.
Just here we go. Show the thing you had. Yep.
So the looking at this small model, which is not accurate for a reason, so that it cannot be used as a substitute. But one of these was given to each of the original co-workers, and it's kind of a copperish. It's very nice. But the skin is translucent. It is porous, like the skin of your body, and the energy that flows through the gravitational field upon which it constructs around the ship, it has its own gravity, just like you would have a planet with its own gravity. And so it makes no difference whether the craft is this way, upside down, or any direction. The gravitational pull of 1G is always towards the floor, so the people inside are feeling comfortable sitting just like we would be sitting in a chair, regardless of what position the hull is in itself. But the energy emits through the hull and causes what we would call a radiation biosignature. And this was another laboratory experiment on George's negatives and films that showed that his pictures had a biometric radiation signature, which shows that the craft itself is real and not a model.
Yeah, you can actually see that when we come to the Silver Spring clip. I will show you a couple of still frames that show the the glow around the craft, which is actually the radiation through the hull.
Right.
So, but now I think I will show a little sequence with the still images, just one at a time, and then we can much easier see the craft over the tree line. I think I will show that now.
Very good.
Yeah, we will both be able to be shown in the right-hand corner. So let's go to the, I think I've called it Mexico grabs. And I think I will do those from this frame on. And I will just throw in, this is actually the first, when the sequence from the trees outside when they're driving towards this area, we can suddenly see the craft in the distance, which is this craft here. Yeah,
he went over the hill and came down the other side. And as they were coming down the other side, you could see the area in front.
Yeah, exactly. So this is from where we will start it, and then we will just take it frame by frame. And I will start now. So we will just take it. So we will see each frame. Then it is much clearer to see, actually, instead of we have all the shake of the camera. So this is what we are actually seeing. This, we can zoom in on this. We can actually see through the craft. This is the cabin area. This is the dome. And this is actually the central pole.
The magnetic pole, yes.
Yeah, and below the tree line is the rest of the craft. It will come down here. So this is what we are seeing actually in this movie, so people have an idea what it is. It can be a little bit difficult to wrap your head around what's happening, but watch the right part of the craft when we are moving forward. It will become much more solid to look at. I think that's a good description, I think. So let's go ahead. And this is a raw film. As you can see, there are stripes through the film. So this is not processed in any way. This is a raw film. So we are moving, and now the dome is becoming less see-through, and also the cabin is getting less see-through. It's becoming more opaque.
And it's reflecting some of the light from the sun, too.
Yeah, now we can really see that this part of the craft is getting less see-through. It is quite, I can remember, like I said, I think I viewed it 100 times to get my head around what was happening in front of me. I didn't understand it in the beginning. But this is actually the sequence that will end with it becoming, as you can see, the left part is still see-through, but the right part is not see-through anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It is totally solid. And that is a technique that has to do with the material of the craft and also the gravity fields, as you mentioned.
Correct.
That is actually visible if you view the craft from a distance, and also from inside the craft. You can actually look outside. It is the same possible to view from the inside out, like it's see-through or translucent, and you can also make it opaque. That is the technique that they have, actually. So this is, it's quite amazing to see it in real life. It is quite shocking, to be honest. This was the Mexico film. I think we will, we will have covered it quite extensively. I do have some still frames from the 3 still frames that we saw from the inside the film. This is actually some of the first views of the cabin and the dome, and I would venture a guess that these are 2 people.
Oh yeah, I do
believe so.
Yeah, I believe so. That shows that reflectivity of the people behind there. Yes, absolutely.
Definitely, I think so. And this is when it's becoming more solid. You can actually see the dome much more solid, and there is a little hint of a person there, but we are seeing more of the craft. It's bobbing up in the tree line, and that's about it. So these 2, I think, is a pretty good. It shows something of detail, which this film does. And when we began the sequence, we were actually, I can just show a little bit of it. Let's see if we can see that, because we saw when we saw the sequence in the distance, we saw some trees that moved, and we also saw a craft move in the left side. I will just try to show that sequence of the movie. It's very difficult to see, but you can actually see in the left side of the first sequence, you can see something moving by the tree line. I think well, when you see it in relationship to the other ones, it's easier to identify. Yeah. So I think I'll just show that little clip again, and then we will stop it. So let's do that. Let's see that. Let's see. I'll share. Here we go. So let's show that again. And let's see this one. I will just stop it before it begins. Then I'll just show you where you have to look. You have to look in this part of the screen, the left part over here.
Yeah.
And that is where a craft is moving this way. 2 craft, I would venture, but at least 1.
Yeah.
You can see something moving behind the trees, actually. Let's show that little sequence again. It's difficult to see when it's moving like that, but there is something moving past in the left side. Here is something again moving. You can actually see it if you stop, but it's very difficult to stop because it's shaking. But you can see something moving in the left side now.
Well, like I said before, the space people made the arrangements, and so they made themselves available. So obviously he's driving, in fact, he was being driven because George didn't drive, and he was ready with his camera. And so they led him to the point in which more could be filmed. So they had to start somewhere, and that was the start of saying, hey, okay, it's going to begin here. They come around the corner and start to go down the hill, and then more of it becomes plainly visible.
Yeah, definitely. It is an amazing piece of film, and I'm still so happy that you gave it to me, Glenn, to show. Fantastic. The next sequence will be when George was going on a world tour in 1959 to between Australia and Auckland, but he was also going another. I think he also ventured to some other countries, didn't he?
Oh yes. He stopped in Hawaii. In those days we were prop propeller airplanes, so the jet age had just begun. They went to Hawaii, then they went to Auckland. He did some extensive lectures in New Zealand, then got on board the Viscount, the propeller airplane, and flew from Auckland to Australia, where he had further lectures and showings. The archives that I have of the newspaper articles from both places, the number of sightings increased dramatically when George came there to talk. I have a whole book full of them in which the people had seen the saucers before and during when George was there. In this particular sequence, originally I went into archives and I started to transfer older films to see what's on there, and I came across this sequence, and I didn't pay much attention to it until I slowed it down and looked and noticed that that originally it shows one flying by. But then as they continued to fly, then they became two or three or four in formation and grouping flying underneath the wing of the aircraft.
Yeah.
So, you know, once you look at it a little bit more and a little slower, it becomes a significant footage. This isn't by far the only footage that he took. He went from Australia on through India, Pakistan, and then into London and what have you. And so, yeah, it's a good piece.
Yeah, let's jump to that, Glenn, and let's see that. Let's see. So that's an airplane footage. Here we go. And we will also see that a couple of times because it's quite interesting. Just moving quite slowly under the plane, and that's nice.
Yeah, and it also correlates to a section we'll later view of my father's film taken out of the airliner as well. You can see one of them actually, straight up. Yeah.
Yeah, here we see three actually lights moving.
Yep, exactly.
But you will, and we will see it again. There's a third one there, and there's the three.
Three again. In formation. And these are they look pearlescent when the energy field is on. It encompasses and it looks like a luminescent cloud, various changing of color, and that's normally how the ship would look.
Yeah, here's the first one alone, and then there will be three here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, quite a nice piece of footage. Mm-hmm. And they're moving nice and slow, not fast, nice and slow.
Yep.
Yeah, that is just a great piece of footage, this. And then I have to ask myself, how did they ask him to be ready? Because he was up in the plane.
Well, they may have said something to him before he departed. Remember, what people aren't aware of is that space people accompanied George everywhere he went.
Yeah.
And sometimes they would be more subdued about it, not being more visible, but they would accompany him everywhere as two things. One is a reminder, and two is a support structure, because in this world where everybody tries to tear you down, the amount of pressure and stress that the man was subjected to was immense, and you can only be sympathetic to that type of work. And so they were with him, and I'm sure that they simply said, hey, as we're flying along there, you may see some things down here, so
be ready, right?
And George was always ready, like my father. That camera was glued in his hand.
I can totally understand that. Like I said, if you have the opportunity of such documentation, of course you're ready all the time. Sure. You're prepared for anything at any time. And that is the uniqueness of this, that what we are talking about today. This is very, very unique. And I'm still amazed that he had the guts to come out and present these things. It must have been a great pressure for him to come out and talk.
There was film in his briefcase that was not shown always publicly. And there was one piece of film over New Mexico that looks very much like the famous picture in the magazine of the mothership moving across along the area of New Mexico around Holloman Air Force Base. Except for this frame was taken, they stopped on the road, pointed towards the mountains, and in front of them became a whirlwind-like motion, like a whirlpool. And then all of a sudden, the entire cigar-shaped spacecraft became visible, and out from the hatch below it fell out and shot away the little spacecrafts like the saucers and moved away like bees from a hive. That's exactly, and it was very much like this, except for much closer. And those ships shot away in other directions, and some of them came back, and then all of a sudden, that craft, the area around started to whirlpool again, and the craft became totally invisible. This piece of film was enough to knock the sauce off of anybody. And there were some pieces of film that George just didn't show. He determined that a certain amount was okay, and he was not out to get acclamation and fame. He was interested in approaching the subject and the public in a way that would be of benefit. So I can only relate from that film.
Yeah, I can remember when you described that sequence in an email to me many years ago now, and I was just thinking, what if he had just kept that? Oh my, yeah. But I totally, I get it, everything. I understand. I
The
understand the
reasoning
dilemma.
behind this is that after George died, my father had the briefcase that George gave him that contained these things. Some of the films, George had been in Boston a couple months before, and that's where all the friction was coming from the government, because after the Silver Springs film, George went that week to Boston, and he called us up and says, I've got government agents everywhere around me. Anyway, and so when he met with his space contacts, they determined that certain pieces of film at this particular time should be withheld and withdrawn until whatever time they.
And it was not secure to be in possession of that, actually.
Well, no, they
his personal security, right? So
I would say, as well.
Yeah.
And so anyway, but what we do have is not too bad.
No, exactly. That is so convincing. The next clip we will go to is the Appleton, Wisconsin clip, which I personally like very much. It shows a lot about the gravity propulsion and also the electromagnetic bobbing up and down on the field inside Earth. So it is quite stunning piece of movie, and it's extremely violent movements. People will have to realize, with people inside that craft, what would happen if there were no gravity protection inside that craft. People would be smashed against the walls.
That's right. And so as our own scientists and government have said, these type of accelerated maneuvers to thousands of miles per hour and then a dead stop and change direction would cause 100 G's worth of gravitational forces at least. And so, the blackout for our own pilots are about 10 G's maximum, if not less. And
sometimes 5 and 6.
That's right. And so we have to understand two things. One, this is not conventional aerodynamics. It has nothing to do with airfoils and high and low pressure and a certain shape in order to facilitate lift and flyability. That's out the window, because once you produce your own gravitational field, you are free to move in any way, shape, or form you want, and it will never affect inside the ship because you are under a 1G secure situation. It would be like, for instance, if we would take our own space stations, whether it would have been International Space Station or Soyuz or any of these, and we had done a very simple thing and just rotated it. We could have produced gravity for the astronauts, so they would be in a gravitational field rather than a detrimental long-term anti-gravitational field, which has effects on your body, your bones, and structure and whatever. So we could have taken our ships and produced a gravitational field while at the same time it moves through orbit at 17,000 miles per hour. So you are oblivious to that high motion rate because you are once again within your own encapsulated field. Exactly. And this, when you look at the Appleton, Wisconsin footage of 1961, you can see the craft not only move frontwards and backwards towards you, but sideways and then up and down. It's also, I wouldn't call it a wobble because it is...
it looks a little bit like a wobble, but it's not. No, I know.
It's not, because when a wobble would be like this, on a string or on a top. That's not what it is. The wobble is kind of an up and down, rapid up and down motion, and then it goes horizontally as well to full stops. And so when you look at this film, you know right away that our conventional aircraft and military interceptors and equipment haven't any chance in
hell.
In hell, exactly.
Exactly. They have no chance. No, it's such an unconventional way of moving that you are just perplexed when you look at it, because it's nothing that we can replicate at all. Our airplanes is moving in one direction with output in the end, but these are moving any way they want, up and down, sideways, forwards and backwards. And that is what is such amazing stuff to look at. And then you have to think about when it was done, right? So we had no propulsion of that kind at that time. So it's just pretty convincing. Let's say it like that. Let's see that, Glenn. You will of course, be invisible, but you will talk if you comment whatever you see. We will see it at least 2 or 3 times in this film.
Okay.
Because
right.
it's pretty interesting. So that was something else. I think I have to go back and then just share again. No, I had optimized. Good. Let's go back, Glenn, to the Adamski film. Here we go. And the Appleton. So let's start it, and people will see it like getting up from a grass field.
Right.
That's where we go.
So this is how it originally looks. You have a cigar-shaped, elliptical-shaped craft that's now motioning towards you, then moving backwards, then sideways with immense acceleration and stoppage, then down, sort of like the wobble we talked about, and then moving across the sky again. So you have both horizontal and vertical and forward and back motion. So complete 3-dimensional motion in all aspects of it. And it shows the incredible maneuverability of their particular system. Yeah. And we would
This is impressive. This is very impressive.
This is impressive. Yes,
yeah, it is. Especially this now, which is dipping and going up and left and right and forwards and backwards. This is just fantastic.
As Colonel Freeman said in 1967, when my father was invited to the Pentagon to show the films, Colonel Freeman said that these are some of the best he's seen in civilian hands.
Yeah. In civilian hands, yeah. Yeah. we know what they have.
Yes, we do.
I'm sure they have much clearer films. Yeah, this is maneuvers which are fantastic to look at, actually. And in reality, it could have been on its side. It could have been on its head.
Yes.
It would have made no difference from people inside. No difference.
None whatsoever.
No. They would never feel that movement. Never.
Nope. There's no motion feel whatsoever inside the craft.
Nope. What you see outside, that's a whole different thing, because of course you can see the horizon going upside down or whatever, but the feeling inside is like you're standing firmly on the ground.
Yes.
That is what it is. Let's see it one more time, I think. Because it is just impressive. I just like it very much. But of course, I have to say that we can clearly see that when they are closer to the ground, they are more susceptible to being a little bit erratic, because the fields are getting closer to each other. The electromagnetic field of the ground from Earth, and also the craft will put down electromagnetic radiation. So it will be a little bit more wobbly the closer it comes to the ground.
Well, yeah, because the planet itself is such an immense generator of electricity and static energy. And as we know well from Van de Graaff generators or Tesla coils and these sort of things, that the planet is a magnificent producer of energy, far more than we could ever get from the sun or oil or anything else. If we would tap into electromagnetic energy, we would have all our problems solved.
Oh, we would. Glenn, I will just stop sharing, and then I will show 2 still frames from that clip, just so you can see those as well. I think you already know which ones it is, and these are much clearer. So you have an idea of this is in the first frame that we saw, some of the first frames where it's getting up from the ground, and then just deciding what it wants to do. And the next one is just when it's over the house on the left, on the red house. Here we are. That's almost towards the end. But this is actually what perhaps U.S. intelligence is in possession of. Much clearer images and much more defined crafts.
Well, we talked about not too long ago the '64 incident of the missile launch out of Vandenberg Air Force Base.
Yeah.
And and the fact, and in fact, we saw the I saw the video that you sent me of the interview with the photographer,
Yeah.
who stated they were positioned up in the on the foothills with the high high filming, high frame photographic cameras and equipment that were supposed to follow the rocket in, or the missile in launch, and it did. And of course, it's much higher quality equipment, because the taxpayer pays for the best.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that missile was launched, and as it accelerated through 4,000 miles per hour, a saucer-shaped craft came into the film and began pacing the rocket, and then flying circles around it and shooting beams of light at the cone, the nose cone, until where the warhead was, it dropped off, and then and it flew off, and then the missile, the rest of the missile test was aborted. And so a demonstration of their maneuverability and capabilities. And I think also it's a way of telling us that, hey, no matter how sophisticated and how arrogant we become with what we have developed, and we have developed some very sophisticated weapons and technology, that regardless of what we've done, they are still thousands of years ahead of us and light years away as far as their capabilities.
Yeah, exactly. They have the ability to do whatever they want if they really wanted to. So all the talk about which we will maybe take in the next part, all the talk about them being a threat to Earth. Well, if they really wanted something, they would have done it thousands of years ago, right? So,
well, not only that, there are dozens and dozens of incidences where they have never retaliated. There was a circumstance where one of our Navy ships fired a missile into the bottom of one that, while it did not have the entire energy field around it, and it crashed into the ocean, and another ship saucer came around, went into the ocean, picked it up with a magnetic, what we call elevator, magnetic field, and then tandem pulled it out of the ocean and piggybacked it off into space and to its carrier craft. Had that been us, we would have retaliated immediately, destroyed the ships, because we cannot control our aggression and our emotions and everything else. That's why with all the things that we've done to them and they have not retaliated, if they wanted to cook us, they could have done it a long time ago. Still today.
Exactly.
So the people who are promoting this aggressive, fearful agenda into the UFO subject do not know what in the world they're talking about, and even less responsible for the consequences of what they're saying.
Yeah, exactly. We will definitely get back to that in the next section.
And it will be in the new book too.
yeah, exactly. That is, it will be exciting when it gets out. Yeah, I'm sure it will. People will get some wrinkles in their foreheads when they see that book and read that book. But it's a good thing. The fourth film we will see will be over Vista in 1964. And let's view that film first, and then we can talk, Glenn. But you can, of course, talk during the film. Right. It's a very short clip. The beginning, maybe I should say that in the beginning, it begins with, in the left corner, we see a very, very small, almost non-visible craft, a dark little one, which is moving like this on the screen. And then the next clip will be when it moves in a much clearer shape from the left to the right. But it is very difficult to see in the distance. But I have actually stopped it, so I have been able to see there is a very small object in the distance, which it's it's announcing that it's coming closer, I suppose.
Right, exactly. George moved to that house in December of 1963, and in 64. It's set up on a little hill. It was a Lado de Loma drive here in Vista, not too far away, and it had a clear view of the surrounding area. As all things were 50, 60 years ago, there was a lot less of population and construction and things like that. But you'll see on this film, as this comes towards the house and accelerates and stops, and we will see, when you see the still clips, that you can see better the three-dimensionality of the craft. The lower hull, one of the 3 ball condensers, a little bit of dome. So yeah, I'll go ahead and run that.
Yeah, sure, we will. let me get this out of the way first, and then we will share the screen. Here we go to the Vista. Here we go. And this is the original film. So here we go. I can say that if you want to study it, you can study this area. This is where the small craft will be moving backwards and forwards, and then it will come towards the photographer here. So this is what we will see next. Here we go.
It's quite a good piece of film as well.
Yes.
As you can see, it's an old piece of film, but it shows the craft very clearly and the maneuverability behind the power lines and the acceleration. And so, yeah, I wouldn't tweak my nose against any of George's footage because it's much better than I've seen anywhere else.
Yeah. Study this area over here. It's moving. There's a little craft moving here. Let's go back again just to have a little look at that. If you
the frame is so small that
but it's moving here. It's moving up and down, and then it gets closer. And this is very convincing. It's going behind the power lines. That's clearly visible. Unfortunately, we do not see the clip where it goes behind the tree, but that would have been really nice.
Yeah, well,
you get what you get when you film.
That's
right?
Exactly what I was going to say. You get what you get.
You can't be choosy when you get this opportunity. You need to just follow. He's following the object quite clearly. Actually, let's see one more time.
He was ecstatic to get whatever they were willing to give him.
Exactly, but you can actually see this small craft out in the distance in the left corner there. But this is very nice to look at. Again, it's moving on the gravity fields and also the electromagnetic propulsion. That is clearly to see. Very steady, actually. They're keeping a steady path there.
Yes, while it moves horizontally and vertically, it does not wobble like a top.
Nope.
When you see any kind of films of late or shown something where you see the craft wobbling like a top, that is not authentic.
No, that is hanging from a string. Let's say it is hanging from a string, right? Let's see if I can find a couple of still frames from that, Glenn. Just a second. I can't remember if
you had a couple. I know.
I know I had a couple, but if I've saved those, let's see. I got a lot of still frames here, but let's
on the bottom. Down to where it says PSD at the bottom, on the right-hand side.
Those three are actually still frames. I actually got 5. So yeah, we should be able to see some. Let's see. This is. Let's see if we got this one. This is actually the small craft in the distance.
Right.
Here.
Right.
Yeah.
I see that.
So this is where it is in the beginning, and there is actually for 2 frames there is a somewhat of an elongated cloud in this part. I have actually not. I don't know if I got a still frame from that. But I think I did. Just a second. Yeah, I did actually have one. Let's see if that is the one.
There, I see it. Yes.
Yeah,
it's a cylinder.
This is actually something for 2 frames, I think. It is visible. And
that's a cylinder of some sort. You bet.
I think it's a cylinder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You bet.
It looks quite nice, actually, that I caught that.
Yeah, that's a good find because I hadn't seen that myself. Congratulations.
I took it frame by frame. I can tell you I looked at quite a few times. And
I'm sure.
Yeah. And
Very
this is
good.
the next frame, it was gone. So it was maybe for 3 frames. And that is less than a third of a second. So it's, you really need to be, and this is actually where it moves. But yeah, let's just see. This is actually, let's take it step by step here. This is where it moves in, and I think there must be a couple of still frames in between. It really jumps around, and yeah, this is one where you can see a bit.
Just a bit, yeah.
And then you can see the top here.
Yeah.
That's what I think you can see.
Yes.
So I do believe that is it. And Go on, past the tree. Go on.
You already flew behind the power lines. How
Yeah, I
much more
know. Why isn't
how
it
much
enough?
more do you want? Yeah.
Yeah. But this is actually also a very nice little clip, and it's so smooth when it moves, and that is quite
Since
quite a
you
feat.
have shown or revealed that cylindrical, why don't you show the mothership shot from Mount Palomar?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. So we have a little idea of what it is. Yeah, I do. I should be able to show that anyway. I know I have it.
It was in the previous list.
Version.
There it
Here we
is.
are. Here we
Yes.
are. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, when you look at that,
Let's
you
zoom
can
in.
see.
Let's just zoom in, and on the obvious one is the one on the left on the side.
That's right. The left on the side.
That
That's one
is
with.
just a very nice one.
Oh yeah, you can't. Nobody can say that's a bird.
No.
And when you zoom back out, that's amazing.
Yeah.
You start seeing the other craft in formation that have yet to go into their full power setting. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's one up here, 9, 10. 10 saucer craft besides that one in this particular frame, taken at the top of Mount Palomar in the late 50s. I would guesstimate probably 58. And it shows a cylindrical mothership. And so it very much is comparable to the frame that you saw in the earlier film, and the frame we will see later on that my father took over the North Atlantic out of the 707. Very much the same.
Yeah, very much, exactly. Almost a copy, a true copy, yeah. With 2 craft around it, so it's very nice. But here are actually 13 crafts. So there's 1 here, 5 here, 5 there, and 2 in the upper right corner.
Yeah, 13 altogether.
Yeah, that is actually
quite an amazing picture.
Yeah, it's quite an amazing one. Yeah, and you can actually see some of them are getting ready to use their fields.
Right, it's starting to power up.
Yeah, they will turn white.
Like a rheostat on a light. As you start increasing the power, then you start to get that.
Yeah, but this one down in the left corner, that was what hooked me immediately. And I thought, my goodness, this is transparent. This is actually, you can see the engine. You can see the part of the cabin, and you can see some ball here, and you can see the whole hull.
Yeah, so literally the craft is on its side like this.
Yeah, that is exactly like that. Yeah, yeah, this is a nice one. This is a nice one, Glenn. Yeah, thank you for sending me that as well.
No worries, no worries. More for the cause.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. That was the Vista one. The Boston one, I find a little bit more. I won't say uninteresting, because it's a dark spherical one, not spherical, elliptical one, which moves very fast, and I have no idea what the distance is and what the circumstances are. So I hope that you may be able to tell us a little bit about that.
Well, in the Boston footage, you can see it's taken out of the hotel window.
Yeah.
And you can see the road up in front, and that you can see the automobiles moving. Yeah. And initially, one craft appears and goes into maneuvers, and then a second one joins it and mimes the same maneuvers. I remember George and my father talking that they thought that these were registering discs, not the large-scale craft, but the smaller remote-controlled discs.
Yeah, they look a little bit like the one on the Silver Spring film. Yeah,
exactly. We'll see that as well. So yes, that's what I would say they are.
Yeah, but I think I only have the clip with 1 craft moving around. But let's see. I don't think I have the one with 2. I don't know why, but we'll see. I can't remember. I think it's only 1, but let's have a little look at that one. And that is just a second. Just have to see that Boston. Here we go. I think it's only 1, but I may be wrong. You can see it full frame, Glenn? Yeah.
Yes, I can see it. Yeah. So you can see that here. You can see in the distance the cars moving along the highway, and the sign of this hotel there. And and then what happened was the second one joined it, and they moved together and along the same sequence. But you could see that there were a very slight difference between the two. They were not locked in sequence, but they were maneuvering in sequence. So sometimes a little closer, and sometimes not. And so that is That is part of the Boston sequence.
Yeah. No, this is the only sequence I have, Glenn, on this
Okay,
one.
I'll have to look and see.
But I think I've seen the one with two
Right.
crafts, actually. Let's see that one again.
That's pretty good too. So that's
Yeah,
all right.
it is. So it's coming from above and zooming down over the trees.
Yes,
Let's
dropping down. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, here we go. And we got in the bottom half of the lower half, where just below the Adamski Foundation mark, you will see 2 or 3 cars pass by from left to right.
Mm-hmm.
So
there they go. There was one behind the tree. Yeah.
Yeah. There we go.
So there was a highway
car
there along there. Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, this is quite nice. I do believe you're right that it's a registering disc or a probe or whatever. Yeah. It looks to move very fast and very.
And the registering, yes, the registering disc can vary in size for something that is about maybe 8 inches or a foot, all the way up to a size of about 20 feet.
Yeah. You can actually see some of the pulsing from the craft if you look quite carefully. Let's see if I can stop it. You can see it sends out pulses. I can see that when I play it in full speed. Okay, let's see that. I will see if I can stop it. That is quite interesting. Actually, you can see it dark, like from the top of the craft, there will be pulses sent this way out if you just study it. I don't know if you can see that, but I can. It's like it's becoming hazy around the top of the craft. That's actually quite interesting.
Yeah, energy field.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I do believe it is. It's like it's becoming a little bit dark gray below.
Because usually when these crafts are taken, photographed and pictured and filmed, if they're in motion, they're going to have a certain amount of energy field distortion around them, or radiation field, as we say.
Yeah.
And so you're going to see that haziness come through. So people, in their misunderstanding of things, they always say, well, are there not any clear pictures of UFOs? You look at George Adamski's photos from telescopes and pictures from flying saucers have landed and inside the spaceships, you see clear pictures. And then the same group turns around and says, well, those pictures are too clear. It can't be true. You know, you can never satiate or satisfy the mind that does not want to grasp the obvious. But anyway.
That is the problem. That is the problem for George Adamski. His evidence is sometimes too good, and sometimes it's too clear, it's too unfocused. But you know, people have got to make up their mind. What he presented was astonishing. All you have
to do is get your hands on an 8mm camera, an old one from the 60s, and then look at it. How you have to adjust the focus and follow in that little tiny hole what's all going on. My God, I mean, it's no easy feat whatsoever. That the films were this good is I find incredible.
Yeah, pretty amazing. I do believe that if there had been no agreement in advance, he would have had big trouble getting these things because they would have happened too quickly. He would not have been prepared, right?
So they came to him and told him, hey, because they were always traveling with him. So they got the message and said, hey, you know, we'll be ready here and here for a piece of film and maneuverability. You be ready too. Otherwise, it would be totally impossible.
Yeah, exactly. I have used an 8mm camera when my father had one, and it was extremely difficult to get, even by people just walking past the camera. You know, like the family, it was very difficult to get steady movement.
And my father used to always say to me, he says, you have to count the seconds in your head slowly, like 21, 22, 23. You have to move slowly. And I never forget Madeline tried to use the film, and she would go like this and like this and like this with the camera, and everybody go, because it goes so fast through, you don't see a thing.
That makes no sense. Yeah, the craft moves fast and the camera moves fast, and you get no idea what's happening.
Yeah.
That is the problem. Well, yeah, it's not easy to use an 8mm. Definitely not. You need to be steady and also think about, you have 3 minutes. That's it, you know.
That's all you
got.
On
the roll. 3 minutes. That was on our films anyway. I don't know if it was 5
all
or
the
6.
same.
Yeah, 3 minutes. I think that was it. So it was a bit of a stressful when you had to use that camera. It was stressful because you had to think about it.
And you never knew how it would turn out until it came back from the developers. You had no clue. I mean, today the people are so lucky. Here they got a video camera. Click, it's right there in front of them on the screen. They can rewind it, play it. I mean, now we have SLR cameras that are all digital. There's no such thing as film anymore. And so, you know, people have no clue what it was really like in those times.
Yeah, exactly. And the same when you took 35 millimeter, you know, still pictures, you had to get them developed first, and then you had to see if they were good, any good, right? So you had to use a light meter. That was a very good help when you took pictures, but you couldn't be sure. You were never sure when you took still images.
That's why you took so many frames.
Exactly.
Basically, you panned and you took many, many, many frames. Like George said, through the telescope, when he took pictures, he took dozens of pictures of the same images because you never knew what was going to come through. And I have negatives where some of the well-known photos of that he has in his books of the clear saucer, and some of them are highly blurred. Some of them are off to the side, partially in the frame. So you had to literally experiment and then hope for the best. Yeah, exactly. Now I remember that you said that about the classic, you know, the four really good pictures, still frames from December 13. In 1952 of Adamski's, but he took many more than what is known, and that is keep those as a little secret because but I have seen a couple of those when you were in Copenhagen in 2018. That's true. Glenn, we have to like a good piece of meal. We have to end with the pièce de résistance, as they say in French, which is the Silver Spring movie, which it is amazing, even though people say it's too dark, you can't really see anything. But afterwards, we will see 495 frames, still frames from a little sequence of that film. Because I got a version that is a little bit better than what is on that film. So we will see a little bit about that. It's lighted from below. It's actually there are actually light on the discs below, on the the ball condensers below, and on the bottom of it, and also from the one side, which is actually not possible as the sun was behind the craft. It was out in the distance, the sun. So how it comes in from the left and below it, that is a little bit interesting. We may talk about that, and that is also something to do with the propulsion. But right. So to give people a little sequence here, first the registering discs came over the house. And that's actually quite a long sequence, but we need to have that one as well. And there's two sequences. One where it's slanted sideways near the roof of the house, and then the other one maneuvers between the trees. And as you also will show from the analysis of some of the still frames, you can see the registering disc goes behind the tree. So that takes care of that right there. And then what happens is in the distance, a small airplane flies by, and part of what you don't see in the system in the sequence is that the saucer comes skipping across the tree, kind of like a stone skipping across the lake, and maneuvers right in between the trees and starts to perform and mime the exact same sequence that the registering disc did. The registering disc was sent in there to measure the distance between the trees to make sure that there was enough clearance for this 33-foot craft to maneuver in there. Now, as the craft maneuvers, you will see, as you mentioned, the sun off and to the right-hand side. And also as it maneuvers, you will see that it extends and it retracts one of the 3-ball condensers. And also that there becomes an elliptical distortion of the side of the hull because you're starting to see more of that radiation sequence. And George described this, as the space people told him, this was a very complex maneuver in order, because they usually don't come this close to the ground and perform such maneuvers because it's dangerous. And so they did this specifically for him to give him, as you mentioned, the piece de resistance, or what he considered to be the crowning sequence of films that he had to show the public. And in fact, on March 13th, this film was taken, I believe, on the 26th of February. Yes, and March 13th of 65, my father arranged for the international press conferences in Washington, Mayflower Hotel, in which all the top correspondents, Huntley and Brinkley, all these people were there. And my mother and Madeline sent out the invitations to the Embassy Row as well, so that they were foreign dignitaries as well. And they showed some of George's film, including this very last sequence of Silver Springs, and it knocked them on the floor.
Yeah, I would still say this is the ultimate evidence that
right.
He had special connections, let's say it like that, with these people, right? So
and the film was analyzed by William Sherwood at Eastman Kodak, who was an optical engineer, and they just and through the analysis they came out with that the object was approximately 100 feet or slightly less away from the camera lens, and also X amount, I believe it was like 40 feet above the ground,
yeah,
and the dimension of the craft was approximately 32 to 35 feet. And so the analysis came out to support the fact that this was authentic. Now, many I have seen over the years on YouTube, many people just try to discredit this film because they're looking at a copy upon a copy upon a copy. And anybody knows in the photographic field that the more copies you make of something downstream, the flatter the image becomes. It becomes more and more two-dimensional.
Yeah.
So they say, oh,
that's
well,
what we will see. That's what we will see. It's pretty dark. Yeah,
that's right. But the analysis of the still frames, as you will show, shows that it is three-dimensional, because you can see the portholes along the side and the last one curving around the corner. And so I think that most people's assumptions are taken from erroneous conclusions that they don't know the circumstances about.
Yeah. I'm sure that that is the reason why people do not really grasp what they are seeing. It looks like they're seeing a cutout of something which is just moving up and down, left and right, and so on. It is extremely erratic because it's close to the ground. That is, I think, what you have to remember. It was extremely low in the sky. So that means it was close to the ground. Had it done something wrong with one of the balls, had it put it out, it had to come down. So it would have been forced to land. And that was not the purpose of this clip, I'm sure. It was the maneuverability and what it had to show.
It was the maneuverability, the proximity, and if you look at the trees in the film too, the film frames, they're about 75 feet high, so it starts to give you a pretty good a relationship to exactly what was going on.
Yeah, definitely. Of course, you always wish for clearer film, but this film is stunning. So let's begin with the sequence with the little registering disc or probe or whatever. And that's quite a good intro. So you can talk further when we look at that, Glenn, just so the circumstances about what that also Madeline Rutherford was actually also going to use a camera, which she couldn't. And Adamski could have taken another camera, but there is a little bit of a missed opportunity there. But that is the way things go sometimes. And,
well, George knew this event was coming too. The space people came to the house and sat there, and they described what was going to go on and happen. And even Madeline was there. She was in the house when it happened. She described the two young fellows that came to visit, coming through the garage and through the door into the dining room where we always used to sit. And so George thought about giving her the camera so she could take some sequences, because he was keenly aware that everybody was saying, well, George took this, George took that, and he didn't want to be the only one. He wanted to show that other people took this as well. So he initially gave her the camera, but as I mentioned before, Madeline had no expertise with a movie camera, and so she moved all over the place like this, and George just grabbed the camera and started to film, because otherwise this would have been over with. This was a very fast sequence, and so that's how that worked.
Yeah, so let's take a little dive on that one and see what stunning piece of photography, actually. So let's go with that. Silver Spring, here we go. It's a nice piece of film, especially the one with in the beginning with the registering disc. I think that is very interesting. Yeah. So let's do that. Glenn, do you have a full screen to view? Yeah, you do.
Yes,
right?
I see it.
Good.
Here you can see the registering disc as it moves above the trees and starts to measure the distance between the surrounding obstructions and foliage. And And this will mime the same kind of maneuverability that the larger scout craft will replicate. And so, and you will see that there are a couple of frame sequences here where the disc goes behind the tree. And we have freeze framed those as well, and we'll show them. This is the one, as I mentioned, the roof of the house off on the left side. And it was measured. They measured areas all around the house.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the film sequence, the saucer, which you don't see, continued above your head and over the top of the roof. And so it became a very clear view of the undercarriage and part of the gyroscopic propulsion rings that are underneath there. And George did not want that to fall into government hands.
No, I can totally understand that. You can talk about propulsion, but don't show too much.
It went just momentarily there. And
This
we'll
is
show
actually
freeze frames. Yeah.
Yeah, we have, I think I have 3 freeze frames from that sequence, or 4. Yeah, this is actually where you can see it's a very oval disc, a little small oval disc. I would guess about 4 or 5 feet. Yeah, that's a still frame.
Yep. Absolutely.
You had in fact
there it is behind the tree. Yes.
Yeah, that's behind the tree. Yeah, definitely.
Now starts the other one. As I mentioned, the airplane flew by there.
Yeah.
And then came the registering disc. We got some of that there, that in between the trees. Those were the exact area where the scout maneuvers. You'll see that the scout follows those trees, and those trees have got to be about 75 feet high. So it's not that far from the ground. It's pretty close.
Here we start the sequence.
And as it maneuvers, you can see the through one of the 3 ball condensers being extended and retracted on the right side, and also you'll be able to see now when you look at the single frame that has been produced. Like
that's a little bit. I will show them better. These stills are a little bit blurred. So
that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine enough. Yeah, I don't know why those two. Let's see it again. Let's see the sequence one more time. I think that is a good thing. Yeah. Whoops. Go like that.
No wonder Colonel Freeman said the best in civilian hands.
No, I'm I am sure that he could see the difference between amateur video and good quality, and this is good quality actually. This one is pretty
how
good.
Anybody could look at this and then try to call George a charlatan, I cannot comprehend whatsoever.
No, I don't know. I don't understand that really.
It has to come from predetermined negative thinking or negative biased on the internet that people have tried to promote against George, because certainly nobody else in this field has got this. Not even a registering disc do they legitimately have.
Can you see the little dark rays that comes out from it? You can actually see it on some of the, when it moves on top, you can actually see like it's it's blurring around it. Can you see the dark thing that's emanating? You can actually
a little bit. It's hard to see because of the motion and the age of the film and all of that, but still.
Yeah. This is stunning. This is actually stunning. He's holding the camera as still as he can, and it just moves up and down. How in the hell can you fake that in an 8mm? You can't.
You can't.
No.
Anybody who has any technical...
There is a craft in between the trees moving up and down. That's you can see that. That's an airplane.
Anybody who has any technical knowledge whatsoever. I mean, you don't even need to have technical knowledge. All you have to have is a little bit of logical, rational thinking.
Exactly.
And that should lead you where to go. But anybody with technical knowledge will tell you, of course, it's authentic.
Yeah. And you can see each frame of the film, right? So there, what is the discussion? You can actually see it, and you can see this ball on the right side of the craft coming down here. Now it's almost going to land, but of course, that's not the purpose. So
Yep.
it's retracting and extending that.
And remember that this is not the original either, because on the original, you will see the three-dimensionality of the craft as you are showing them in the still analysis here. And so this is the copy of a copy too. I think it's a second or third generation copy.
Yes,
but
it is.
And so, you know,
I will just stop sharing it, because when we show the still images, I will just let's show the still images as well, because then we are in a small image over on the right and we look a little bit more attractive. Let's see. I think these are actually some of the stills I got from you originally. Here is one before I enhanced that one. That is actually a still frame from. You can see the three-dimensionality already on this frame.
Yeah, and let's be clear, you see a couple things. First of all, you didn't enhance it, you clarified it.
This is just one frame that you sent me. I have done nothing to it.
Right. It's when you look at the frames that you clarified, that means that there was no addition to it. You were clarifying it.
Just making it lighter, actually.
You can see on the hull the very slight, especially on the left-hand side, emission of the radiation signature coming through the skin.
Let's see that. I think maybe I did it. No, this is actually a screen. This is actually the one where you can actually see the
that's right, the elongation, and also up at the portholes on the left side, you can see how they wrap around. So this is not by any means a flat two-dimensional or cutout image, because it's a three-dimensional one.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go through those.
And before you go, as you mentioned, the sun is behind up in the right-hand side. If you look underneath the right-hand condenser along that side, that's right, you can see some of the propulsion signature.
Yeah, you can see light here, which should be impossible, because it's actually blocking out the sun. Nothing should be lighting down here unless it's from the propulsion. And there's also a small light here, actually, and also here. And something is going on inside here. But I think I may be able to show that a little bit later. Here, Glenn, here I have just made some very close up of some of the sequences, which you can actually see that there is blue haze around some of the craft here. And you can see some of the portholes. This is from the original image that I have. Nothing has been done to it. So this is actually portholes.
And the film frames that I gave you access to were actually film frames duplicated from the original film. So in a way, they're better quality than the copy of the film that you have there.
Oh yeah, much better actually. But you can actually see that something is radiating all around the craft out from inside, right? So something is going on here, and you can actually, I've made it very large, so you can actually, but you can clearly see round portholes here.
That's right. That's it. And if it was a model, it would be a clear, sharp edges, which you're not seeing.
And this would be flat. It wouldn't change the size of the. You can see this is much bigger and wider than this one, for instance, and as this one, which is just almost up and down.
Yeah,
so
sliver.
It's very, very. And this is another one where you can
from the other side. Yeah,
on the other side, and you can actually zoom in here. So you have. Something is going on from the craft. That is definite here. And you can also see it, this one.
Yeah, radiation signature. You can see it.
Yeah, you can definitely see something is radiating out from the hull. Of course, this was an enhancement, but it was one frame from the original. I didn't do much other than just enhance the edge. So I don't know if you have those images, but you will get them if you don't have them, Glenn.
Okay.
These are quite nice, just to have. And I think I've showed the same on the right side. Yeah, there was something on there as well. But let's go to the capture. I think these are the ones from the bottom. Just a quick look.
Yes, and to give people a little bit of a history, when George went to Boston right after this film was taken, and he made the statement that I told you before, that he had government agents all over the place.
Yeah.
The space people that were with him, and they looked at the film, and they did not want clear images of the propulsion system underneath to get into their hands. They felt that since we militarize and weaponize everything, that still had to be held on to.
Yeah.
But the two images that you found here were actually on a video sequence of the film that Major Hans Petersen had, who was the IGAP, or International Get Acquaintance Program for Adamski, in Denmark.
Yeah.
And so you were able to find those two microsecond shots still at the end of that film.
A third of a second. Yeah. 5 frames.
That shows the undercarriage of that craft as well.
Yeah.
So that is kind of the crowning cap.
I was surprised, very surprised that say it like that. I had never seen those before, never. Mm-hmm. And this is something that this is my copy of a little sequence from that we have just seen, but I will show them in a rapid succession, so you will have an idea of what we actually just saw, with a very dark shape of that craft, which is actually now, as you can see, it is actually lighted on that side.
Yes.
Which is supposed to be impossible because the sun is over here.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But you can also see something coming out from the craft. It is very, very light around it, and that is interesting. You can zoom in actually and see something radiating here.
It is a radiation signature, which proves 100%, plus the motion and plus the analysis, 100% that is authentic.
Yeah, let's move this along. There's 497 images, and let's just go along. I will move them fast.
Yep, the full retraction.
Now it becomes much clearer than the dark shape that we just saw.
Yep, and the full retraction of one of the 3 ball condensers.
Yes, and we will end with it coming almost out. So we will move along. And then it's up around the tree. It becomes a little bit dark. Yeah, let's go faster. As you can see, it's a raw image. There's a lot of dirt in it. But these are not enhanced in any way. They are only taken from the actual film.
Right. Mm-hmm.
This is what it looks like. As you can see, there is light under the craft, which is like here. It is impossible. It should be impossible, right? That should not be able to happen.
And I hope that this project we've done this evening reverberates through YouTube, and that the people who see this will speak up for the misrepresentation that has been previously done on this film and about GA, because this will bring this to a final evaluation.
Yeah, definitely. But we will end. This is actually when it's moving around. You will be able you just see it a little bit more clearly because it's not a dark shape. And we got about 100 images left, so we will see it. As you can see now, there's also a light underneath, which is quite clear. It is a strange thing to see, actually. And you can see there is light on the left side of the craft here, and on this again.
It's not strange. It's very enlightening.
Yeah, the light moves around the craft. Think about that.
Well, sure, because the propulsion system generates its energy, and that energy also produces a frequency in the light spectrum.
Yeah.
So you will get them in tandem, because once the craft is fully enveloped in its energy field and looks like a large pearl, then it radiates a spectrum of light like a rainbow. Yeah,
it does. It is quite stunning. Here you can actually see almost I'll just go for backwards and forwards. You can see the ball is almost fully out. So had it been more fully out and the third one had come down, then it had to land. I would say it's about 30 feet above the ground here, not more.
Not more than that, no. And
you can also see the top, the dome of the craft is very, very defined here. In the other sequence, you can also see that it's much more flat. It is like it's pressed down because the light is being wrapped around the craft. And that is quite weird. And here you can also, if you look at the left side of the cabin of this one, it is almost straight on. We're looking below this. That is quite strange. On the same, plane.
I think because the ship is slightly tilted.
Yeah, but you shouldn't be able to see two different things. But that is because the right side of the craft that we're looking at is a bit more askew.
Yeah.
It is like it's twisted.
Well, because that is a ring that's above the cabin. As the rings are underneath the flange that are rotating and counter-rotating, that is a ring that's on top of the cabin that rotates as well.
Exactly. And this is the end of the sequence. I just thought I would show you these because these are much more defined than the sequence of the movie where the craft comes in full shape. Let's see some of the some stills which you actually also have. So let's share those. I think I got some defined ones. Hey, I got the small probe anyway. That is the still frames of the craft when it's moving around that tree, which is actually it's coming behind this one on the left.
Right.
So this is where we are moving, and here we are going. Here we are behind we are behind actually. This is where it is. So you can just go backwards and forwards. You can see that it's behind those.
Oh yeah, it's very clear. It's that's not debatable. It's
obscured in the left side, so it has to be behind the. There can be no discussion, right? So let's see if I got those still frames from the. I should have those somewhere. Yeah, they're up here, I think. Yeah, this is actually one of them, which is enhanced from the sequence we just saw. So I'm seeing some of the portholes, which I do not believe is a physical. Yeah, I think they are generated electronically from inside the craft. I do believe that can be totally like we saw on the Mexico film. We could actually see the cabin without any portholes.
In this case, the portholes were described as being like an eye of a camera, like an iris that comes to. That's right. And so what happens is that there is a clear filament like a window to look through, but when they want to close it, they close it like the eye of an iris, and then the section becomes like a solid. It doesn't have any breaks in it. This is a protection feature. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, I know what you mean when you say that. Yeah. I obviously only had 2 of these. I don't know why I don't have all 4, all 5.
That's pretty good. I
3. I have 3. So, but this is actually also very good. A nice sequence which we did not see in my still frames, but this is very defined. But you can almost during the whole sequence you can see light below the flange.
Right, and you also get a clear view of both right and left of the porthole sequence.
Yeah, exactly. They are actually visible in the whole sequence, the portholes.
Right.
It rotates a little bit, the craft, it moves a little bit around, but it's pretty one way towards the camera. It's pretty good maneuvering.
The newer craft, as you well know as well, the elliptical shaped craft do no longer require or need windows. What they have is a camera element, very much like we have in our sophisticated fighter jets, in which the pilot sits in a cockpit in which it's totally enclosed. It has no windows, but the micro cameras project onto the area around him, so it looks like he's sitting absolutely levitating above the ground, because everything below him and around him is the outside view. Yeah. And the newer crafts have the same technology where they do not have to have physical windows, but they have the projection ability of replicating what's outside onto the screens inside, which is nothing more than the advancement of their technology, which is advancing every day.
Yeah, which is a weird thing to look at, I can tell you.
I agree.
It is. You really need to. If you have vertigo, it's not a good thing. But you can focus. You can focus and concentrate. But it's not easy. Glenn, I think we should. I think we have seen what Adamski had produced. Some of it. I'm sure there are more. But this is 6 very convincing sequences of films, which I find. If people have any doubts now, they must be stupid.
Well, We don't want to accuse people of
No,
stupidity.
no, but there
I
must be.
remember the old saying that you used to hear my mother say as well. The greatest sin is ignorance, and that's
Yeah.
not to be insulting to anyone,
No,
but
no.
ignorance is usually self-generated. It's something that people want to maintain, because if you see the truth, then you can no longer deny it, and at the same token, it sets you free, like the old saying, the truth will set you free.
Yeah.
It sets you free in understanding, so that you can understand the old to progress with the new. There is none of this blockage in between that we are so often enveloped in. And so I would say that I think that if people see this, I think that this definitely will give the newcomer cause to think, hey, there's something here.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it will give those who are more skeptical or critical something more tangible to look at, to be able to justify that re-examination.
Yeah.
And that for those of us who know it to be true, and this is only one sequence and variation of truth, then all it is support us further in our understanding and progression of what we represent. And that's what we represent with these YouTube and lecture series and communications, the education of people's open mind.
Yeah, actually, to expand their knowledge base, because that is what some people need anyway. It's always good to expand your view about certain things and what you thought you knew. And people have a lot of preconceived ideas about what Adamski stood for, but these films are extremely convincing, I would say.
Oftentimes, they have made these preconceived ideas not their own. They have not developed them themselves.
No.
They have absorbed that from what others have promoted and professed. And like we discussed many times, the accusation gains more traction and ground than the actual truth, because so many times the accusation was thrown out there that these were water coolers and chicken feeders and everything else.
Yeah.
And after all of this, when it has been technically, undeniably proven that they weren't, the retraction never comes from these same people who made the accusation. And therefore, it's easier to find people who throw out stuff off the cuff in order to cause mayhem and confusion, and they're never held accountable to retract it after they have been shown to be, well, shall we call it, less than honest.
Yeah, I think that's a nice way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I still have some diplomacy left in me.
Well, me too. Sometimes you just by accident say what you really think, but no, you can always pack it into a nicer presentation. But Glenn, to finish this off, and not to diminish your father's three clips that we're going to see, they are actually also very nice. But I think you will have a little bit more close relationship to those as well. So you will talk as well. Let's begin with the train film where you were an active part of the filming, holding down the window, and let's see what that shows. It goes a little bit fast in behind the trees, the crafts which are moving, and they're also a little bit low in some of the frames, but we'll see it a couple of times.
Somewhere I have some more film, and I've got to really look in the archives.
I think I have seen
safe.
something else, because I think this is only part of the sequence.
Yes, that's only part of the sequence. Yes.
Yeah, but you will see it. It's pretty good, but I think there is something more, because I've seen still images from that film which shows something different.
Right.
So,
exactly.
But let's take a little look at this.
But the history of this is that in 1966, my father and my family, we all went to Europe, and we went on a lecture tour and also a reacquaintance tour with the original co-workers that were in part of the European theater. And that included Major Peterson, Dora Bauer, May Morley. Oh, let's see who else.
Lou Sintak, maybe?
No, she was out. In 61 and 62, George cut her loose because he found her cooperating with the so-called silent group or opposition in order to destroy this field, and so he immediately severed that cord.
Yeah.
but there are a number of people that were a part of that original cadre, and so we went there and stayed with them and talked with them, and then my father did lecture tours. And what you find in this particular film is we were on a train traveling from Mannheim to Frankfurt, and in the European trains you have compartments on the left side, and on the right side you have the walkway, and the windows are spring loaded, so you have to pull them and hold them down.
I can remember that from when I was a child. Yeah.
And so what was happening is I was standing there. My father told me, hold this window down, and I pulled the window down and held on to it, and he was filming outside the train, and all the people were lined up next to us watching this same sequence, which you will see here, and it was later shown on German national television, and it was later said to be one of the finest sequences of film that they had ever seen.
Yeah. It's very good. It's very nice, I can tell you. Had I seen that from outside a window of a train, I would also have been filming as fast as I could. So let's take a little look at this. This is a nice sequence. Nice sequence. I always, wish that there had been sound, but that is the way. It would have been sounding so nice to hear all the panicking people say, "Look at that! What is that?" But that's the way it was in these times, right? So
well, they weren't panicking, but they definitely were excited.
Yeah, exactly. So let's start with that one. As you can see, it's
on the very bottom there, near the watermark lettering, you can start to see the light of some of the craft information. And then as Dad dropped the camera lower, you can see it's all behind the train and behind the tunnel and behind the trees, and these were flying in formation alongside of the trees, and it was just not this clump. There were several clumps of the same number, and so this represented a very substantial number of spacecraft. I would say a fleet that were making themselves available and known, so that so Dad had support on his lectures as well.
We will see it again. We will see it a couple of times. But I'm sure that there is more to this clip, actually.
There's some more film I've seen. I know there's more film. I just got to figure out where it is. So
yeah, that's fine.
One thing at a time. The last 2 chapters of the book, and then off to editing and get that thing out, and then there will be time for other things. I have to work on a movie script and other things that I have put all aside because I
here we can at least see 12 or 13 crafts.
Yeah.
Yeah, so at least.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty interesting. That is interesting. A nice clip. Very nice clip.
Yeah.
And here they are a little bit more together, but you can still see them, and the trees are in front. So no problem.
If you get a chance, whenever you have the time, go through here and take some freeze frames of what you consider to be the best clips, because I would like to have them as well.
Let's see it one more time, and then that's it. In the beginning, they are almost down in the bottom. You can actually see them here down in the bottom. There's some white things that are popping up here. Yeah.
Once again, you're in motion. The train's rocking. You're filming, and so.
It's a difficult proposition, but they are down here below the trees.
Yeah, you can see that.
Yeah, if I make a still frame, you would be easier to see. But
and there we went through
higher up. Yeah, you can better see them higher up.
Went through a tunnel. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's a nice clip. It's a very, very nice clip. A good intro to a lecture tour, right? So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, very nice.
As George and Dad used to say, once you have these space visitors as friends, you never have to worry. You don't. I
definitely would say that I had wished for the same opportunities, but being a photographer, that would have been paradise. But that was not in the cards.
Well, remember, life's not over yet.
No, I know, but yeah, you know what I mean about that. I think about that. So, but it's a very nice clip. This clip is very nice. It's the first time actually I've seen that clip that was on the original Total movie, and I think that was refreshing to see it, because I've only seen still frames from this. I may be able to show a couple of still frames which you actually are putting into your book.
I had one which I put in there.
Yeah,
I would have liked to put another one with it,
yeah,
with the
just
wire, the tree, but I don't know if, like I said, if you go through there and take some good ones that you
yeah.
think are,
It should be possible, definitely,
yeah,
to get some
then
good ones.
we may take another one and insert it into section one where the other picture is, so that we have one, because the one in there shows the fleet in the air with no obstruction. There you go.
Here we go.
And then,
Yeah,
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 and another one which shows either the wire or the trees or something like that would give perspective to the two frames. So,
yeah. But here we are seeing quite a number of craft.
oh yes,
We are seeing
yes.
nine in this sequence. We are at least seeing 10 here, and we are
Mhm.
seeing 9 here again. And there is another section here. So there were quite a few craft here.
It was a fleet. There was
Yeah.
no doubt about it. When somebody says, "Well, how come they don't show themselves in numbers?" My
Well,
God, they
we
have
have
done
the
so.
we have the evidence right there from 1966, right? So
Yeah, and much
yeah.
earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Let's jump to the airplane sequence with you. Where you was that on the return? Yeah, return to United
Yes.
States. It
What
was.
happens is as we all know, that air traffic going to Europe goes in the middle of the night so that you can arrive in Europe in the early morning. And
Yeah,
all the traffic that goes back to the US or travels from east to west goes in the daytime.
yeah,
So we were on board a 707, somewhere in the mid 30,000 feet, wherever they were operating at that time. And my father took this film sequence of a large cigar-shaped craft, very much like the one that we showed from Adamski from 1958 over Mount Palomar, and we can throw those two together as a comparison.
yeah,
And two individual spacecraft alongside of it. And the analysis through standard mathematical trigonometry, I think that you also concurred with, that it was at least several thousand feet long.
yeah. It was definitely a large craft, which we estimated to be maybe, let's say, 10,000 feet below the craft or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
If you
I would say.
calculate it like that, but it looked like it was at some distance below the airplane.
Yeah, I would say by the looks of it, anywhere from, I would say about 15 to 20,000 feet below the aircraft. Let's
Okay.
say the aircraft was in the mid 30s.
Yeah,
So that means that this craft was probably around 10 to 15,000 feet above the
yeah,
surface
it
of the
was
ocean.
definitely larger than maybe the calculation. So yeah, it was an enormous craft actually. So let's see that one. Let's have a little look at that. Optimizing. Here we go. Oops, I have to get out of that one. Over to the films. And let's go with the airplane. And I've got the still frame afterwards, so we can see that as well. But let's see it.
So there you can see the craft out through the double pane windows of the 707, and it's moving. We're moving along, and as it continues to go, it will eventually disappear under the nacelle of the, I think, a number 2 engine there off of the right-hand side. There you go. So
we'll see it again. No worries.
So
yeah, the two crafts are here, and this is the large craft here. So
right.
These are the two smaller ones. I believe they are the smaller ones.
Yeah, so those are the Scouts. Those are the regular craft.
Yeah.
And by the looks of it here, it looks like the number 3 engine, because we're on the right side of the aircraft, and in those days we still had 4 engine aircraft.
Yeah. But it's a nice sequence. I've never seen anything like that before. So yeah, I think it's very nice. I especially like this one where it goes behind the engine.
Yeah.
This one. Yeah, you can definitely see it's out behind the engine.
You can see it's in motion. That's right. So if we go back to the still.
Yeah, let's do that. Here we go. And go back to the still here. Yeah.
So you can see the still much more definitively, the same type of cigar-shaped craft, exactly the same shape as the 58 mothership of Adamski, and the 2 smaller crafts, as you can see, with their energizing field on the top-hand side. So I think that that came out very, very magnificently. You know.
Yeah.
My father was thrilled anytime he got a piece of film, he was absolutely ecstatic, just like George was.
Yeah, definitely. I can tell you this is part of my favorite, since I hadn't seen the train movie actually before. It is now also part of my favorites. but and of course the lenticular one, which we're going to see.
Right.
Shall we see that immediately, or
Yes,
shall we?
let's look
Let's
at that.
jump to that.
This was taken in the 1970s by my father here in the California area. This is the new type of scout craft, the lenticular craft that has replaced or is in the process of replacing the bell-shaped craft that we have seen before. The bell-shaped crafts are basically their antiques, and they have used them specifically over the recent decades because our ancient records and biblical records all refer to the bell-shaped craft, the wheel within the wheel, the flying roll, and so all the other references to it. But this lenticular craft does not require the mothership. It can go interplanetary on its own, and that is basically their newer development.
Yeah,
and you're familiar with that.
Yeah, I do actually. I study this so much that I almost got a pain in my eyes, because I see something that I recognize here, and you will see that in the still frame. Actually, we will show that immediately. I got 4 still frames from this one. This is the one, and this is actually a zoomed version of this.
Yeah.
This is very, very defined, and I recognize this part.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, good.
yeah, and these are the first ones. Actually, this was the last piece of it, but this is from the first part of the film, which is also very nice. We can really zoom in on it. So I made it as extremely large. This is the part I'm talking about,
right?
Which is very nice. Yeah, we can really see something here. Let's keep the copyright in the corner. So people, if they steal this, they can at least see it says Adamski Foundation.
Yeah.
Yeah. You never know, So, but
I have seen enough
again,
people. Yeah. I've seen enough people attempt to use
yeah,
our material or George's material and claim it for their own, because basically they don't have anything.
No,
and
exactly.
So
this is the part that I was interested in, actually. And this is just a still. It is so nice, this piece of film, that it's so easy to make still images from this one, because it's a very, very steady hand. And
well, it's newer film too. It's film that has progressed in clarity and development since it's a 1970s issue. I would say probably mid 70s.
Yeah.
And so it's the entire
very nice
quality of the film is a bit better.
Yeah, definitely better. I can see that. Oh, now we are back at his photos, but
yeah, pull up the mothership. Go back and pull up the mothership once again. The third one over from the right. That's there, so people can see that in comparison. See, so you're looking at that versus what was taken out of the Boeing 707.
Yeah,
and you can see there's no difference whatsoever. So that should take care of that.
Yeah, you could definitely say that. If people are not at least intrigued, maybe not convinced 100%, but they should be convinced, because this is old analog film. And that is what makes it very special. Not with your mobile phone, not digital, not photoshopped. This is raw movie. And this is impossible. I would say impossible to fake.
The NASA scientists in '66, when my parents went on invitation to NASA Goddard before 22 panel scientists, one of them said to my mother, he said, you have a very interesting piece of film here. And another scientist says, yeah, you should submit this to the Condon Report. And my father said, why would I waste my time? The Condon Report is nothing more than a cadre of individuals that is an official representation of debunking, and of course that's what it was when it came out in January of '69. That's all it was, a negative accumulation of predetermined biases. So, but anyway,
it was people who outsidely said they were objective, but which was not objective at all. It was a foregone conclusion that what way they would recommend, right?
They were even caught in the memo that said that we will pick people that are going to be of negative disposition, so that we do not get any conflicting opinions, thoughts, and ideas, basically to that extent.
Yeah.
And so it was a purposeful misrepresentation from the get-go. So, but anyway, we have given the people this evening on this particular show and sequence a very good overview of the films that we have been lucky and honored to accumulate over the past 80 years. And so I think that by sharing this, we have given everyone something to think about and hopefully to want to revisit the Adamski story and the entire photographic and film evidence that supported that. And I hope they have something to think about.
Glenn, I think that was a good ending comment, and I think we will just stop the recording here and say thank you very much.